welcome back to the desk. Corp are one game away from winning it again. And guys, before we jump onto Chance Select, I don't want to ask the pressure that's on Fnatic Rising's shoulders right now. These kids, the lack of experience they have maybe, and the fact that they're facing off against the Spring champions, how much is it playing for them right now, especially going into this potential last game?
I mean, you've seen what happened to Spring and BTXL, where they managed to grab one game and then Corp came in hard and took all the other three. Right now, they're sitting with their backs against the wall. They're 0-2. What else do they have in store? I feel like this is, again, where you scrap everything you've seen so far and you try to sort of go again as if this was a best of one. Because Fnatic Rising did really well in best of ones. You're like, don't think about the past. We're playing this best of one. We take it one game at a time.
I think you can kind of see that pressure, though, in the way that they've been trying to play the map. Like, one of the big issues that we've seen is, or sorry, one of the big improvements that we saw was them playing out through those side lanes incredibly well, cross-mapping beautifully. That's not what we're getting in this series. We're getting panic plays. We just highlighted the rush play that we saw coming up towards that barn in the last fight as well, or sorry, the last game. So I want to see something change, and already we're getting that side changed.
Yeah, different sides, same ban so far. You
Hear
really
me
want
out.
to see the LeBlanc? Yeah?
Same comps, different teams?
Oof.
Potentially, yeah.
Same bans so far this time around on both sides. Yeah, the Aurelia taken away. Where do you want to take this if you're Fnatic Rising?
Yeah, I think the big one is going to be trying to take away the Jarvan. I mean, Trouble was mentioning just off the air that, like, well, we've already seen MAXI played as well. Why not have that come through? Also, I think, though, you've got to be careful, right? Because SAKEN has shown that he's pretty happy taking, like, the Rise blind into things like the Twisted Fate. But maybe if you've got this early jungler, you can set up a bit better for these pick-orientated compositions.
I think it's going to be much easier for Pride to grab the Gangplank as well, because when you have the Jarvan taken away by MAXI, then Pride can grab the Gangplank because there's nothing that's going to be locking him down. Now, the problem is that Lee Sin is open and available. MAXI can take the Lee Sin. He has played it before. We don't know if Dajor has that in the back of his champion pool as well, but then he has to choose between the Jarvan and the Lee Sin right here. I think this is going to be the case. But on the other hand, we have the Thresh going through as well because the Varus is banned.
Yeah, I love this here, because, I mean, you leave the Thresh open, right? Cool, you can bring in some of the crazy picks like the Aphelioses, the Jinxes, these kind of things, but it means that you could nearly take the, well, imagine the Lee Sin here, but if you really wanted to with Cinkrof, you could also take something like the Jarvan, and then you're kind of taking that early game pressure as well in the jungle, not giving any sort of early answer. But it looks like instead we're going to see the Ezreal. MAXI, I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of defaults back towards the Viego, though. It has been one of his big picks. And I think you take the Aphelios here as well. An easy lane matchup against the Ezreal, a lot of protection coming through in the Thresh, and make this a living nightmare for whoever's piloting that Lee Sin.
I do agree on that one. I feel like every time Fnatic Rising is in a lot of trouble, they put all of their eggs into Bean's basket. And at this point, it's been shaky so far, I'm not going to lie, for Bean. He hasn't looked top notch, especially on his most comfortable champion, which is Varus, and now he's going to have to play it all in all for on that Aphelios. They also are giving him that Twisted Fate. We could potentially see a lot of play being made towards that bot side, trying to get the Aphelios ahead, trying to bank a lot of kills onto that hyper carry. And also, we're going to have to see what Pride is going to have to play in the top lane, which is versus what I'm assuming Cabochard's Lee Sin.
Yeah, and I love the Aphelios alongside the Twisted Fate, because one of the big things about Twisted Fate is, hey, he kind of sucks for team fights, right? But when you've got the Aphelios is able to alleviate a lot of that team fight pressure because of how strong he is, particularly if he can close the gap. So Fnatic Rising setting up still for playing that kind of 1-3-1 sort of style, but certainly not going to be lacking in team fights. But as you see that Azir come through, good push, keeps Dajor honest in the mid lane, and then lends itself towards Karmine Corp just having a stronger team fight overall.
And it's a pick that brought a lot of success to Corp previously. Now, Trouble, in terms of ban and what you want to pick for Fnatic Rising, where are you taking this draft?
I would be looking into something like a Gangplank, trying to split the map open, trying to create some room for your Twisted Fate and your Aphelios to play around, especially because they're both very immobile carries. What I'm looking at right here that is very, very scary is, again, so much comfort for Karmine Corp. I'm looking specifically at SAKEN onto the Azir. He has 5 games in this European Masters, 100% win rate onto the champion.
Yeah, and Go ahead, Dagda.
Yeah, I think there's a lot here that I'm kind of trying to unpack here, because I think Cabochard as well could take the Gangplank here, but your biggest worry then is potentially leaving yourself with like, hey, we're getting pushed in on bot, potentially getting pushed in on top side as well, although Gangplank tends to do reasonably okay, so maybe you end up in this situation where you're getting like a lot of opportunities for MAXI to start to roam around, especially with things like the Viego still open, opportunities to go for these on fades, if you want to go towards something like the Olaf and have that Twisted Fate Olaf combo. So I think there's a lot of opportunities on both sides here, but I'm still very curious as to where this Lee Sin's going to go.
I'm also scared right now because I've seen... I was pretty sure that Pride was going to lock in Gangplank right here. I'm like, you're lacking hard engage. You're lacking a lot of engage. Yes, you have this engage with the Gangplank ultimate, with the box from the Thresh. You've got the Aphelios with the right guns, it can work. You've got MAXI diving in with the Viego, yada, yada, yada. But when it comes to like hard engage, catching someone off guard, getting these early game stage advantages that we've seen Fnatic Rise and demolish other teams with, I feel like they're lacking on that department. And also, you have an Aphelios in the bot lane, a Gangplank on the top lane. They technically both of these lanes kind of want to chill. And then you've got a Twisted Fate, which I'm assuming is going to be running around with MAXI, trying to get the advantage right there.
And now we have the answer. Lee Sin going into the jungle will be the last pick Kennen for Cabochard. Dagda, where should we look at in the early game? How is this one going to go?
So I certainly think for the early stages, Karmine Corp going to be taking a little bit easier, right? I mean, Azir just kind of wants to farm it up, same with the Ezreal, so you're probably going to be looking at some place towards Cabochard on the top side, but I think you're going to be struggling just a tad here to get yourself up and running. Karmine Corp, you are looking for late game fights and see if you can find these big engages with the Kennen, which I think will be a bit of a struggle with what Fnatic Rising have brought out.
Trouble, a lot of mobility on the bot lane of K-Corp. Once again, the ability to be left alone when you play Ezreal. Isn't it going to be difficult for Fnatic Rising's bot lane in that sense with the Aphelios and the Thresh?
I feel like the Aphelios and the Thresh are going to be okay in the early stages of the game, but the Kennen, even if he doesn't find his way in, you've got an Azir shuffle, you've got a Lee Sin kick, you've got a Rakan to keep people in place, to then allow the Azir to shove everyone into the Kennen ult. So even if Cabochard doesn't even find his way into a fight, SAKEN could be like, yeah, there is everyone, hold them.
Well, we'll see if he can hold them, and we'll see what Fnatic Rising can do this time around as we're heading into Game 3. Casters, take it away.
Thank you so much, Laure, Dagda, and of course Trouble. They broke it down. We're seeing a lot of different picks come out, and you can't mess up anymore for Fnatic Rising. Karmine Corp, the blue wall is now becoming a blue cylinder of wall, and it's closing in on you ever so slowly.
And that's the interesting part as well, because one of the things you struggled with for so long, both in the first game and in the second game, was this open map scenario where all of a sudden there's so much to play around. Now you have two globals, you have the Gangplank ultimate, you have the Twisted Fate ultimate, and you have to make it work now. You literally cannot drop the ball, and that's it. 3-0 for K-Corp. They are relentless in their aggression, and they still have tools to be so here as well, because you have the Kennen ultimate, you have the shovel, and you have the follow-up from Targamas who can dash in with a Lee Sin. There are so many ways that K-Corp can start a fight out of nowhere.
Well, K-Corp, 1 game away from not only being the Amazon EU Masters 2021 Summer Champions, but being back-to-back champions. Not only is it a thing that no team has ever done, no region has ever done it, and this is history in the making for Fnatic Rising and for the NLC. It's their second final in 2 splits. They need to come together. They need to try and find something left in the tank.
It's not only that, for all these players, they're feeling pressured right now if you're already down 2-0 as Fnatic, of course, but K-Corp as well having to find that final nail in the coffin. But half a year ago today, or not specifically today, but half a year ago, 3 players played the final and got LEC. Adam, Advian, Macoon. It's no less than 6 months ago that happened. These finals are the best place to leave your mark on the scene. And for these players to come back now from Fnatic as well to do that would be monumental. But obviously, as you already said, K-Corp looking for that 3-0.
They're looking for it, and they've put themselves in prime position. We are going to see how this game ends up, fanning out, playing out as such. We are going to see pretty much identical starts for the jungler. MAXI on this Viego once more. 3rd time's the charm for him, but this time around, no longer against the Jarvan, but is up against the Lee Sin.
Yeah, he is starting up towards the top side of the map again, MAXI here in this instance, and on the other side, we do see Cinkrof towards the bottom side, pathing up towards the top side. So drafts are different, but the way of playing, at least for the junglers in the early game, very much the same so far. And now we get to take a look at the Azir into the Twisted Fate matchup as well, where it's quite usual for the Azir to get the early priority, early push in, and that allows Corp to get some early game pressure before Dajor hits that level 6 to play around with. If you can bait out his TP, if you can try and make him band-aid a side lane, you can get advantages, and that's how we see it here. You're just being forced away in these early levels.
Being forced away, but the bot lane level 2 race, speed run to level 2, has been won by Fnatic Rising, so they'll be able to get the early pressure there. And very curious, we were obviously looking at the draft ourselves, and curious to see that Karmine Corp are incredibly confident to let this Thresh Aphelios go. Normally, if you see the Thresh being picked up, you just pick up the Aphelios on the other side, or vice versa. No, they said, look, we're cool with it. You go ahead, you ban away whatever you want. We're happy with the Ezreal.
Definitely, and this also allows Targamas to get out of the map if MAXI can stay on his own. And speaking of being on your own, Pride, I've seen you in this position a lot of time, but Cinkrof still waiting around the area.
Still waiting around. It's going to be spotted out, but they're going to force the flash out of him immediately. Cinkrof still pushing, will land the Q. No flash available for Pride, but isn't going to go down just yet. Good little movement here from the side of Karmine Corp, getting that early summoner.
Yeah, especially because now he can attack with SAKEN once he gets that mid lane priority. No flash, and Pride, he'll probably have to TP back as well. Down towards the bottom half of the map, they will always win the 2v2 as Aphelios and Thresh. And also because MAXI has been forced once again to go for that cleanse because you have the Terror of Dajor of the Twisted Faith, you also have to be worried of. So therefore, the 2v2 will just always be in favor of Fnatic Rising towards the spot side.
Right now, MAXI just wandering around, going to get himself a Scuttle Crab, so a little bit ahead of the camp rush here for the Fnatic Rising jungler. And he had a fantastic game one, sadly for him and for the rest of his team, wasn't able to make it work. Then we saw a lot more tempered aggression coming out from the side of Fnatic Rising, but again, Karmine Corp's team fighting and their just general prowess and potency in their champions made it so they just every single time we're able to come out with a win. So right now, what do Fnatic Rising need to do differently now that they have a completely different draft and are on a different side of the rift? Yeah,
we say different draft, but a lot of the fundamentals is still the same here. You can have Rhuckz playing around, or you can even play harder towards your bot side if that's what you want to do. But Cinkrof, once again up towards the top side, is spotted on the ward, and Pride should be able to get out of there. We can see MAXI able to join the fray as well because he has pathed up towards here. But yeah, Pride is going to continue to stay under this pressure. And either you can decide as Fnatic to say, okay, we'll use our resources to try and make him stable, or you can say we use our resources to try and attack on the opposite of the map and try and handshake. And I think that's what you need to do as Fnatic. You need to be able to pull the trigger because right now, in every game, Corp has been the one pulling the trigger.
And right now, Corp, something we've seen them do multiple times in the LFL and of course in this tournament for the EU Masters, they are putting resources into Cabochard. They are saying, look, we're not going to let this early game be as bad as it can be. We're going to give you that time, give you that resources. Hook does land, but Targamas should be totally fine. Actually going to use this as a little bit of an invitation to try and maybe go in. Is going to get himself the Battle Dance out, and a nice little trade of health bars there for the supports.
Yeah, and speaking of that aggression, they're just not afraid to trade anything. No summoners does get burned on this instance, but there is still potential for you to get these engages. SAKEN does still have that teleport in the mid lane right now. Dajor, level 5 on the Twisted Fate, does not have his. And while Cinkrof is towards the bot side, we usually see Corp commit to play where Cinkrof is.
I will say one thing I did notice, and it's something that we do generally see when a Kennen is in the game, no exhaust. So if the Kennen gets in onto that backside, that is pure damage going down onto the AoE scale. But both junglers on this bot side, as we can see a 2v2. Cinkrof going to find himself the one here, though, as they know that this flash has been committed. xMatty pushing forward. One more auto attack will seal the deal. Cinkrof going to go for it, but he gets hooked. It is a death sentence for him, and it's a 2-for-1 trade. Still in favor of Karmine, but you got to feel a little sore.
Yeah, and I have to buy my own words there because it was a 2v2 in the beginning. That was just Corp's bot lane straight up winning that one while MAXI was soloing out the Drake. And I gotta say, when we're speaking of early game momentum, you gotta favor Corp in getting those kills in the early game.
See how it ends up going down. And again, it's just they know they have their jungler coming down, and they know that these guns, the Infernum and the Gravitum, they're just not that good.
I mean, they can be fine for setup as well, but the problem with Ryze is when Bean uses all his cooldowns as well, he's trying to get the Chakram stacked, but he already used the Flamethrower, and he cannot stack them on the big minion wave to really get that dueling potential to come through. So yes, you do kill off Cinkrof, but in the grand scheme, it doesn't really matter all that much with Rhuckz picking up the kill as well.
Yeah, and xMatty got 2. That was a double kill to the Ezreal, so already well on his way to his first item. And see what Fnatic Rising can do as a response to it. They are still only pretty much 100 gold down, as we can see Bean pretty much getting all of these solo plates. So you are still correct in saying that they do win the 2v2, but when the jungler comes in, it's not a 2v2 anymore.
Yeah, I mean, they just saw a huge window where they could go in and, you know, they're still going to do it.
I mean, red, white, let's fight. You do not want to be going too aggressive into that. They will trade back a health bar in favor of Karmine Corp, but you want these guns to be away, you want the Severum and you want the Crescendum to be away before you really start to go in that close to an Aphelios.
Yeah, definitely. Beforehand, we were speaking of TP priority for SAKEN, but right now we have to talk about the global presence that Fnatic Rising has just enabled for themselves. You do have the cannon barrage now on Pride and Dajor. He does have that Destiny Gate, so once again, if you want to commit plays down towards the bottom side, there's a lot of ways you can join in on this one, with the TP advantage also being in Pride's favor, where Cabochard doesn't have anything just yet.
Cabochard able to use his TP to keep himself pretty much equal, if not a little bit ahead on the CS there. Pride keeping his, and actually gone with the Cull as well, so looking to stack that one up, keep himself in the ascendancy in terms of the gold advantage. And it is always weird when we talk about gold advantages, especially when a Gangplank and a Twisted Fate are in the game, because their passives end up just giving them that little bit of inflation. You know, it inflates the economy, and that's never good.
No, but I want to talk about this priority and aggression we're seeing now from Corp, because Red Buff has just respawned from MAXI, and Targamas and Cinkrof, they're out to roam together. They have the mid lane priority from SAKEN, and while Destiny is off, they are having to back right now.
I was going to say, you got pushing bot side there for Rhuckz and for Bean, so you do not want to mess with this MAXI right now. Yes, I like the idea, but they just didn't get the timings just right. So basically not waste a little bit of time, commit a bit of time, not able to get anything else out of it, as we do see Bean now soaking up the rest of this wave that's passing up and pushing into him.
But it's also just the fact that Corp continues with this one. This is Corp you're playing against. They will go for all the pressure they can on you.
I mean, you got to
my breath.
We both did there to see a second. The one thing I will say that's different from this game, as obviously from the last one, you now have two globals. You now have the Cannon Barrage and the Destiny, so you have to respect the double global pressure that can come out. But Rhuckz is saying, we don't need it just yet. We're going to commit fully towards this bot side. There is the Moonlight Vigil. Not quite close enough to get the Gravitum down, but good damage, and they could probably just take this turret.
And that's why we so often see Rakan being picked into the likes of Thresh or Braum as well. It's just super easy to get away. You're such a slippery champion. And while you do say, yes, they can get the bot side turret here with the pressure, Cinkrof is trying to enable something on the top side by getting the Rift Herald. But this is what we wanted to see from Fnatic. Be aggressive towards your strong side. Put resources into Bean to make sure that you have some sort of strong side to play for.
Well, it is enough pressure from the Karmine Corp dual lane to stop that turret from going down just now, but I will say, yes, you're getting the Rift Herald. The Rift Herald is a good objective if you can make it work. We've seen it take down tier 2s in many games. It, of course, can only, at minimum, get you a couple of plates, and we've seen it at worst just not do anything.
Yeah, I don't expect this game to be the one where we see the tier 2s to come through, just because both teams are so fast to make a response as soon as a play is being committed. So if anything, that Rift Herald is just going to spawn a huge team fight out of nowhere. And the later we've gone into this series as well, Penguin, the more stale it's gotten between the two teams, not so willing to pull the trigger. Obviously, draft does changes a bit things here, with Corp having this Azir, having the Kennen where you need some items before you get online. So as Corp right now, with the Ezreal as well, you don't mind waiting around. You don't mind taking it slow, because this is not where you need to be aggressive and pull the trigger. This is where Fnatic, if anything, needs to try and look for something.
Yeah, the first Destiny Gate so ever important, and of course you combo that with the Cannon Barrage. We didn't see it committed towards that bot side. They recognized they probably weren't going to be able to get a kill from that, considering Summers were up and everything, but they are still waiting to see that big play. It is still a slight gold advantage in favor of Karmine Corp, with big waves in top and mid, or sorry, top and bot crashing into the carries should pretty much be equaled out.
Yeah, definitely, and with the pressure, they're trying to regain some control towards this Rakan area as well. 3 seconds until the Infernal Drake spawns, and Fnatic have picked up the first one, but looks like Corp, they are going to be in control with this one. You can see Cabochard has moved down as well towards the river. Top side, he doesn't have any TP. Neither does Pride though, so if anything, a 4v5 might be something, or 4v4 rather, might be something we'll be getting here.
I mean, it's 4v4.5 Cannon Barrage comes down. You do end up getting a little bit of extra utility from that, from the Gangplank in top side. Cinkrof starts off the Dragons, just like a wild card to the face, so is a little bit low, doesn't want to be fully committing to this one just yet, and Fnatic Rising, they don't want to let this one go without a fight. Aphelios still pushing in that bot side to pick up those waves, and they're going to keep the Dragon spawn, but MAXI taking a lot of poke, down to about 1/3 of his HP, and this is the power that Ezreal Ezreal. This is why Karmine Corp kept the priority on this Ezreal for xMatty, because he felt confident in it. But now Pride, good flash away from the Emperor's Divide, but that's what'll be happening. We do see the Dragon going down, flash forward into the, into the ult from the Aphelios, and now the real fight can engage. Cinkrof has nowhere to go. The Aphelios with a double kill. Targamas forced to flash away as well, and out of nowhere, Fnatic Rising find a Dragon, they find 2 kills.
That was so huge. They see the window as soon as SAKEN dashes in the mid lane. They commit to the 3 other members, and of all people, Bean was the one that picked up the Infernal Drakes, and now 2 Drakes onto Fnatic Rising. And even after that, beautiful team fight from Fnatic. Great ultimate from Bean. Great flashing from Rhuckz that really enables the rest of them.
And we'll have a look at the replay here, but again, before we get into it, Karmine Corp are split. They immediately try and go for the Gangplank. It doesn't work, and they try to get a bit greedy. This is a 3v4.
Definitely. At first, I thought, Fnatic, you're looking a bit split here, but once they commit the resources in the mid lane, Rhuckz flashes forward instantly. They find the pickup with the gold card. xMatty no longer having that cleanse, and it's just reset time from the side of MAXI. Dashes forwards, even flashes, forces the flash out of Targamas as well. And Fnatic, all in all, this is exactly what we wanted to see. Usually, they were the team that split up in these instances, but this time around, they found Corp slacking and counted on it immediately.
For Fnatic Rising, 2,000 gold, 2 dragons, and this just wasn't the fight. Again, I feel like that was just Fnatic Rising capitalizing on a very split Karmine Corp. They wanted all. They wanted the cake and they eat it. They wanted to have the play in mid lane while also getting themselves the dragon. And in that 50-50, it was MAXI who came out on top. Cinkrof not able to get the smite down, and then it overcommits the bot side. So now you're looking at it from the point of view of Fnatic Rising. They know that there's no flash on xMatty. There's no cleanse on xMatty. Targamas is going to have a lot harder time getting in and out safely on things if he doesn't have his flash as well. So this is an opportunity here for Fnatic Rising to really make this game interesting and put a little bit of respect back onto their name.
Yeah, and once again, knowing you have that strong side you can force with, knowing that Bean has picked up the first turret for himself with all the plates, having 2 kills as well, makes it insanely easy for Fnatic, because it's just, alright, we're just TPing around Bean, we're just fighting around Bean, it's all going to be around Bean, and hopefully that should make matters a bit more easy from the side of Fnatic Rising. But on Corp, at the same time, you cannot count out the ability to team fight from this strong team. Targamas, SAKEN, and Cabochard. I'm going to have to hold my tongue because it looks like we're having a dive up towards the top side.
A dive up top side. Cabochard and SAKEN still do have TP, and you know the Fnatic Rising know it. There's also not great guns here, as we see now. Oh, SAKEN, a very rare misstep from him. Doesn't quite place the ultimate properly, and that means that his ultimate's just down.
Yeah, good reaction from Dajor as well to step as soon as he saw that soldier stepping up. If he had not done that, he would have been caught by it. But no fight flashes forced either way. Could have been a mind game as well from SAKEN. Could have been he just wanted to dash in to try and force that flash. But once again, Fnatic, they are relentless on this top side, and they are doing a good job by clearing out the vision behind him, so Cabochard won't find that flank TP.
I was just about to say, if that TP came in from the flank, there's nothing you can do. You'll see the Gravitum coming down, moving forward. We are going to see the quickness invested. There is the Moonlight Vigil. xMatty not quite going to go down. But again, more and more pressure. This 2v2 is not sustainable for Corp. They have to keep conceding.
Yeah, definitely, and that's the thing about Aphelios Thresh here. You were wondering, should we have picked it away in the draft? They opted in for the Ezreal, hopefully to try and play for the mid game instead here, but Fnatic, they're just not allowing it. On the other half of the map, though, they could be trying to look for Pride.
Pride is in a lot of trouble. They know that he was in the bot side. Azir is here too. They are going to have the Destiny Gate come in. There's the Cannon Barrage, so he's keeping a lot of time to himself. Now the rest of his team can come in. It's still a 3v2, but these health bars are getting peppered very low, but it's Cannon Barrage. The rest of Fnatic Rising don't want anything to do with it. They don't want to try and overcommit. They just get the kill over, and that's good from Karmine Corp.
Exactly. There could have been a version of Fnatic that wanted to commit for that fight, but resets were coming through from the side of Corp, and Targamas would have been able to join the fight. So Fnatic cutting their losses there, though expending a few resources, and I think MAXI even had to flash in that exchange as well, so could have cut their losses, could have tried to set up for the Rift Herald, tried to help Pride, and in the end they just lost resources on it.
I will say, you will have a cooldown now on the Cannon Barrage and the Destiny Gate, not available for this potential dragon fight in 40 seconds. At the moment, there's very little vision control, but the little of it there is belonging to Karmine Corp. So, Fnatic Rising, they're going to actually just leave that objective for the moment, go straight up towards that Rift Herald, take that objective and maybe use that as pressure to go back towards the dragon.
Yeah, definitely. Now, Dajor doesn't have his teleport right now. He's got an exhaust due to the Unsealed Spellbook, but there's just no contest to come through on Corp. So, as we're talking about here, can take the Rift Herald, can move down towards this Drake. Remember, Fnatic picked up the other Drake with a steal and find a huge team fight and enable this mid game we're seeing from them right now.
Very good start here from the side of Fnatic Rising. Not something we are unused to from this particular series, but important to note as well, no flash on SAKEN. There's also no Slicing Maelstrom just yet. It's just about to come off of cooldown, so you know Karmine Corp are going to wait for that big team fight ultimate to be available to them before they look for something. But while that's all happening, while they're waiting for those cooldowns to come down, it's giving more time to Fnatic as they get Shelly into the mid lane. Now, with that pressure being in their favor, they're going to start moving themselves back down and try and look for this dragon, but you've got to keep your eyes on Cabochard. He TP'd in, he's behind enemy lines, and I don't think Fnatic Rising want to try and go for this.
No, you can see they're still trying to scout out the vision, but all they're finding out is that this jungle is no longer under their control, and yeah, Drake just gonna have to be forfeited here.
Yeah, Pride might be in a bit of trouble though. They will try and push forward onto him. There's the stun going down, but Dark Passage keeps him alive. But now, KC, you've pushed yourself a little bit too far into the enemy territory. So yes, you got the dragon, you stopped the stacking going down, but here we go. Cinkrof trying to find an engage. He gets it behind MAXI. They use the quickness, but the quickness is not going to give them anything. There's the Slicing Maelstrom though, right onto this backside. Fantastic exhaust though, straight away from the Twisted Fate. Stops all damage coming down, and that is the power of this spellbook, Twisted Fate.
Exactly, he kept the exhaust the whole time from when we talked about them moving up towards the Herald. He knew he needed it for this exact team fight when Capo flashes in, and had it not been there, that could have spelled disaster for Fnatic. They get to win the team fight, they get to have the 10-point priority on the map, and they get to push out some side lanes here in this instance.
And again, you see Karmine Corp, they want this so badly, and Cinkrof, he commits so hard, but no one's able to follow up, and great barrels there from the Gangplank just slows down that follow-up.
Yeah, exactly. Even then, MAXI can't make himself unstoppable with the Heartbreakers while trying it out. So just going on the Viego, not too sure that that was the right target from Cinkrof, and then obviously beautiful exhaust from there. We already talked about it. That nets them the kill, but either way, K-Corp, they did still find that Drake. They do still slow down the tempo a bit, which we have already established is still nice when you have this Azir scaling up together with the Ezreal and MAXI as well. Going for this Triforce for some extra damage here on these squishy members.
And this is something we didn't really mention because we were talking about it privately as the draft was coming in, is that if you can find that perfect flank, if you can find that Lee Sin kick onto Bean, who gets onto the Aphelios? No one can touch him. He's so far back, and yes, you have the range of the Ezreal and the Azir, but if you're trying to go forward like you want to on a Lee Sin, on a Rakan and a Kennen, they're just going to get melted.
Definitely, but you can already see the inventory as well from the side of Fnatic. They are also aware of this. There is 3 stopwatches right now, 1 on Dea, 1 on Bean, and 1 on Rhuckz, just in case that this huge crucial dive comes in.
Needs to be very careful. Yeah, Arcane shifts himself out to safety. They are still pushing in this mid lane. We'll get a bit of damage down. The Everfrost comes out just to try and zone away Targamas as the rest of Fnatic Rising join the rest of their team. Hook does not land, goes a little bit wide, and we are looking at a nearly 4,000 gold lead here for Fnatic Rising at 20 minutes.
Yeah, and you can also see how Fnatic has decided to play it now. The top was shoved in by Dajor earlier, which means that now in this instant they could play 2 lanes. So what they did was they had Pride push in the bot lane, they moved together around mid, and they can't get capitalized on, punished by K-Corp as we saw in the earlier series. Now when the top lane, side lane push is finally slow pushed in towards Dale, he can now pick it up and start the same thing again with a reset, with the rest of Fnatic coming out on the map again.
Well, 2 minutes till Dragon spawns. Baron is up and available, but neither team really want to go for that unless you get a good amount of time with the red and white combination for Bean. He would be able to do a hell of a lot of damage very, very quickly. But both teams happy to just keep it calm, get yourself stacked up. We're already looking at a Collector alongside that Immortal Shield Bow here for Bean. You look on, obviously you mentioned there, xMatty with the Triforce and of course the Manamune. And we are getting towards second items as well for SAKEN and for Dajor. So big item spike's going to be coming in. The next fight could be a huge swing for either side.
Definitely very aggressive ward placement as well from Rhuckz. He now does have his teammates behind him, but he was doing this alone just beforehand. Like, that was a very dangerous vision journey he went on there. But now Pride does still have that TP, is pushing down towards the bottom side of the map, and I wonder, is SAKEN going to respond to the minion wave, or is he going to try and come up after taking this blue buff? That is going to be the question, because we have seen this aggression continuously from K-Corp, and it is what makes them so scary.
Very scary. They're not quite here just yet. There is a TP available for SAKEN, so if a 5v5 were to break out, he has got a ward to TP too. About half health taken on the turret, and the rest of Fnatic Rising back themselves away. They've got coverage in the mid lane. They still have the cannon barrage and TPs available. All summoners available for everyone except for Cabochard and Cinkrof, who are just waiting on their flashes, really.
Yeah, definitely. Resets coming through, 40 seconds until this trade could once again be soul point for Fnatic. And it just seems like this objective setup is going to be what we're continuously fighting for, but it just seems like every time Corp, they're first on this objective, or at least to try and contest for the vision control. We saw it beforehand when they got the Drake, and this time around again, they are the first to try and gain control around the area of contention.
Important to note, though, there was a rapid-fire cannon picked up here for Dajor when he TP'd towards this bot side. Cinkrof trying to get behind him, doesn't actually use his ultimate just yet, gets locked up. Now we're going to see SAKEN not commit the ultimate, and it's actually a little bit of a split call here. Now Dajor, oh, it's a disaster for Karmine. They lose their jungler just before the fight, and now an Emperor's Divide has to be used defensively. The MAXI gonna go in, SAKEN gonna go down. It's a double kill, and Fnatic Rising, they've got Karmine Corp in shambles. They don't know what they're doing, they don't know where they're going, and Fnatic Rising take full advantage.
MAXI gets to take over the Lee Sin, finds the Sonic Wave as the pure jungler he is, and finds the backline access, gets the third Drake now from Fnatic. But I don't think we're going to get much more than that. There is still 25 seconds on SAKEN and Cabochard, and Baron could be a potential, but it all starts with this. Dajor getting caught down towards the bottom side.
And he gets caught out, but you see this split call. SAKEN doesn't get it, they get it, but then Cinkrof continues. SAKEN's backing away. It's just so split. It's so uncharacteristic of this team.
It seems like they faltered a bit there, and there you see it. SAKEN stepping too far forward, not realizing that MAXI is no longer a Viego. He's actually a Lee Sin, and then finds the rest of the kills that enables Fnatic's victory in this little fight to get the Drake as well.
Great capitalization here from the side of Fnatic Rising. They pick up 3 kills. They've got themselves the soul point now. There's going to be an Ocean Soul. We can have a look at the damage there. And MAXI very clearly topping it right there. And Karmine Corp, they just need to keep themselves composed. They know what they can do. They know we know how good they are at team fighting. It just felt like you said they faltered a little bit. They second-guessed themselves, and they just weren't on the same page.
Definitely, but it also feels like they don't have the same team fighting tools this time around. It's not the Renekton diving in with the Jarvan and then the Ryze in the background. This time around, it needs to be a bit more careful the way you do it here. You do still have the tools, though, but you can't be split about it. You need to catch them off guard, which is what they've been so impressive at doing in the past.
Fnatic Rising get themselves about 5,000 gold ahead. I would love if the observers, can we toggle the gold, please, just very, very quickly, just so I can see exactly who has that gold, because right now it just feels like Fnatic Rising, they are just waiting for that Infinity Edge to be finished up here for the Aphelios. Thank you very much, observers. They have 1,000 gold here onto the... Oh, I say that, Rhuckz is going to get caught out a little bit, but Cinkrof, that's a hell of a lot of damage going on to him. There we go, flash forward. Cabochard does not find his man, though, and he's a little bit too far. He has to go gold, and he's in stasis. They're trying to see if they can use the range of the Aphelios and the Ezreal, but they cannot. And now the real fight can begin. MAXI with the reset. MAXI and Aphelios, Bean and MAXI, they will take the ace and they will turn and burn for the big purple worm.
400 years combined. Aphelios, Viego coming together in that team fight to finally pick up the ace, to finally get the Baron, and what should be a solidified lead from Fnatic. But Corp, you gotta recommend them. They find they engage in a split scenario once again, and we said we wanted to see it, but this time around the response was there swiftly from the side of Fnatic.
And as soon as Bean is in safety, you have nothing. The Kennen cannot go forward. You cannot make this fight work, and this was as good as it's gonna get for Karmine Corp. They almost find out a pick. They almost find themselves in a great situation. They just can't make it stick.
Yeah, it's great. You can see the minimap. Cabochard moving before Pride. Dajor still up towards the top side of the river here, and this is a man advantage from the side of Cabochard and the rest of Corp right now, but it's not enough. They can't play around the range. They get too close to him, and Bean, he's got the Chakram. He's dealing out so much damage with the Collector as well, and the lifesteal combined of the of the mythic item. So Fnatic put themselves in a really good spot now.
They are now 9,000 gold ahead. They have Soul Point coming up. They have Soul coming up, I should say, in 1 minute 45. And Karmine Corp, a rare misstep in this game. They just don't look like themselves. This doesn't look like the same same Karmine Corp that we saw in Game 1 and in Game 2.
No, it seems like Fnatic has finally found a way to deal with some of this aggression, but nonetheless, you can never count them out, Pink, when you really cannot. We've seen them come back so many times from a great team fight scenarios, and we are still waiting from some of their third items, but the problem from them right now is they're on the clock. There's 1 minute for the Ocean Soul. Right now, Fnatic does still have the Baron buff available, and that means they get all the pressure on the lanes.
xMatty getting 1v1 right now, and he will fall. MAXI will take that kill, no problems whatsoever. And now the base can be pushed up. They have all waves in top, bot, mid, Karmine Corp. You have an Azir, but it's all you've got for wave clear. You have to be able to defend. They will lose themselves an inhibitor, but now this becomes an even harder soul defense.
It definitely is. Cabochard does still have that TP if they're trying to look for any TP wards. I'm trying to look at the minimap right now, but there's nothing deep right now from the side of Corp either. And that just means that this team fight might be a bit longer, at least around the Drake, than we would like to. And so, Fnatic right now, they can just push in the bot side, they can back off, and they can set up the Ocean Soul.
Here we go. They are going to root down Cinkrof with the Everfrost. There is a couple of wards just hidden around here, so the retreat might not be as easy as it sounds here for the side of Fnatic Rising. A flash from Cinkrof as he knew that gold card was coming in. We do have
TP.
the Shurima's Legacy TP coming in. They're going to try and go for this one, but they know it's happening. They can even put down the cannon barrage to stop the engage, to stop people from pushing forward. And now Cabochard does not have that engage tool. 3 seconds until this dragon spawns. Fnatic Rising are out and clean.
They definitely are. Low HP boss as well. Cinkrof on the jungler here. It's going to be a tough situation. You can see Cabochard, he's trying to find a flank position, but he doesn't have any flash. He has to walk through a river.
Watch SAKEN and Cabochard. These are the two guys that can make the engage happen. Cabo gets stunned up. They go in with the quickness. They're trying to catch on to the Aphelios. He's like a pinball being knocked around. Matty goes down, but MAXI is too big. It's a double kill for the jungler. SAKEN will fall. It's a triple kill for MAXI, and that's the game. This series isn't over.
It's definitely not over. Fnatic, they finally find their rhythm. They fix their issues in the mid game, and they're knocking on towards the Nexus towers.
Fnatic Rising 0-2 down will not go quietly into the night. They will rage against the burning light of Karmine Corp, and they will take us to a Game 4. And Guldborg, in the almighty words of all the casters ever, we have ourselves a series.
Oh, we most definitely do, my dear Penguin, and why could not ask for a better series to get multiple games in? There has been so many crucial fights and great moments to witness already in this series. These two teams truly displaying why they are finalists.
Yeah, honestly, it just feels so good from these two teams. And I'm so happy to see Fnatic Rising bounce back, but this series is definitely not over. Fnatic Rising finally able to grab a win, but KC will look to close out the series with their next match point. Coming up during the break is the Warner Song of the Day by Ale Fabin featuring Kiddo. All right?
Wow, I hate you did that. I actually hate you did that.
He's gonna flash in, and he steals the Baron! How does that connect by Edgeway? Fini! As EU Masters Champions!
I try to forget you in stranger by my side. But in time, I'll be around. It's gonna bend me for a while, but I'll be fine. I'm making ways because I'm lonely deep inside. I'm gonna miss you and it's gonna make me cry. But in time, I'll be right. I'll be right. I'm making ways. I'll be alright. It's gonna hurt me for a while, but I'll be fine. I might go crazy and I fall into the night. I try to forget you with a stranger by my side. But in time, we said that this is forever. Wake me up, say it's a dream. Everything's better together. Guess we were never meant to be. Wake me up when this is over. Cut me off so I can heal. Drunk on love like we were never sober. I knew I had to let it be. I'll be alright. It's gonna hurt me for a while, but I'll be fine. I feels like I'm running in circles. I need you here to lead me out. Guess that I just hope for a miracle. I wish that you were with me now. I'll be alright. It's gonna hurt me for a while, but I'll be fine. I might go crazy and I fall into the night. I try to forget you and stranger by my side. But in time, I'll be right. Be right. Be right. Be right. I'll be right. Be right. Be right. I'll be right. It's gonna hurt me for a while, but I'll be fine. I'm making wasted 'cause I'm lonely deep inside. I'm gonna miss you and it's gonna make me cry. But in time, I'll be right. I'll be right. I'm making wasted 'cause I'm lonely deep inside. I'll be right. I'll be right.
He's gonna flash in and he steals the farm. How did that connect by anyway? Fini.
Welcome back to the desk, everyone. Fnatic strikes back and find the answer here in Game 3, and we finally have a series for this summer finals. I am so happy, especially about the improvements from the Fnatic Rising side this time around. So tell me about the adaptation and what made it better this time for them.
Yeah, I think the big thing was we saw a bit of a risk left open by Karmine Corp, where they left that Thresh open, and they could take the Aphelios, and then they just built this composition entirely around protect the Aphelios, right? So you got the Gangplank, who's going to be able to slow multiple different engage tools coming through from Karmine Corp. We've then got the Thresh, who's obviously going to be able to lantern him, reposition him, make sure that he's got a bunch of safety with plays, hooks, boxes, everything else, and as well this Twisted Fate. Now, traditionally, when we think of Twisted Fate, it's like, hey, 1-3-1, looking for picks, playing sides, but this is a very different style of Twisted Fate. You are just a pill bot. You are like, I'm going to throw gold cards, I'm going to make sure that I protect this Aphelios and let Bean carry. And when Bean got these 2 quick early kills, that was the go button for this composition.
And to me, looking at this Karmine Corp composition, I'm like, okay, so I'm like, it's full of playmakers. The Rakan, the Azir, the Kennen, the Lee Sin. I'm like, even if it
Your
doesn't make sense.
mic is not working, Trouble. We're gonna trash this quickly and also check maybe that everything is connected right. But you were saying the Karmine Corp composition was maybe a hard one to play. Dagda, talk me through what they wanted to do here, because you can see that they're looking for a specific setup around the Kennen, around the Azir. But how hard is it to make this composition work?
Oh, it's next to impossible. Like, usually when you think, okay, like we've got like Rakans, we've got engages, we've got all these different tools that you can use, you're like, okay, well, we'll jump onto the Aphelios and it'll be fine. But as we said, you got Twisted Fate peel, you got Gangplank peel, the Thresh is making it incredibly difficult. And I really didn't like kind of the priority that we saw coming through from the Karmine Corp side. I would have much preferred to see, instead of the Azir coming in that third pick, something like a Jace. Because one of the big things that Aphelios struggles with is compositions with range. So if you go for the Lee Sin, Ezreal, and then the Jace, you got great peel tools coming through in the Lee Sin. You've got long range poke coming through from the Ezreal and the Jace. And then, like, if they ban the Azir, it's not the end of the world. You can still go for some of these long range poke orientated champions. I felt like it was just kind of a mismanagement of Karmine Corp about the priority they needed to place onto this Azir.
Trouble, welcome back to the desk.
This one is working, guys.
Yeah.
You can hear me now. So, looking at the Karmine Corp composition, I'm seeing so many playmakers, the Rakan, the Azir, the Lee Sin, the Kennen. I'm like, wow. If anyone's going to make this composition work, it is Karmine Corp. Looking on the other side of Fnatic, immobile champion in the top lane, immobile champion in the mid lane, immobile champion as ADC as well. I'm like, if SAKEN gets one of these miracle shuffles into the Kennen ult, and mind you, there's like a lot of ifs, but if somebody can pull it off, it would be someone like Karmine Corp. We've seen so many wacky picks coming out of them back in spring as well. And if somebody's like ballsy enough to pull something that technically in your mind would never work, because these guys have so much range, you should never reach them. but these guys would. We saw some fights get so close where you're like, had Kennen held on to his ultimate 1 second longer, had SAKEN shuffled one more member, had one flash not been there, but there's like so many factors and so many ifs that you had to like line up that it just made it so hard for Karmine to execute.
And it sucked because even when we got like what looked like the miracle fight that Troll was describing, there was an exhaust. I was just like, cool, all right, well, GG, try again, lads. Like, it was really, really hard to operate, and it felt like you kind of put yourselves into a corner as Karmine Corp with this composition, which I think has been really surprising, because honestly, I think Karmine Corp's drafting so far has been pretty spectacular, but you can see they tried to put the pressure onto Bean in this early stages, but once he got that double kill at about the 8-minute mark, that was the, oh, we're just coming online, and we're going to be able to play this perfectly as Fnatic Rising.
And I thought that after getting this double kill, especially onto xMatty, they were going to use him around these dragons to try and use that Sheen that was early on purchased, use the power of the Ezreal. But it felt like Fnatic Rising came into these fights much more prepared. It felt like the Thresh was creating so much room, the Gangplank was creating so much room, and once MAXI again onto that Viego got going, there was no stopping him. I feel like we haven't talked about MAXI enough. I felt like in this entire series, even in the 2 games that Fnatic Rising lost, he has been a completely different beast.
It's been a lot about the junglers, mostly this series, Dagda.
Yeah, I think a huge amount. I mean, I think Cinkrof, unfortunately, from this Lee Sin, really wasn't the pick here. We saw him kind of overforce plays, feeling like he needed to do things on the map because the scaling advantage was on Fnatic Rising's favor, and it kind of came back to bite them. And I think MAXI played absolutely fantastically. And again, like, he was another tool that could be the carry. You can see this fight here, right? You've been ping-ponging all over the place. You get that exhaust, but you still now have to deal with MAXI because he's picked up a ton of these kills in the early stages. He's ripping around the fights, the triple kill here for himself as well. It just felt like no matter what you did, there was too many different carries that you had to deal with once you had the Viego and the Aphelios coming online.
I am baffled looking at this goal graph and the damage here. Oh, how is that so?
I feel like a lot of these fights, SAKEN played them really well onto that Azir. He's 100% win rate. Is for a reason. He's absolutely nuts onto the champion, and usually you would think of an Azir pick as going up against a bunch of melees or hard engage and like shoving them back out, but I felt like he did the utmost trying to create the opportunities for the Kennen. The second he would see Cabochard, he would try to shuffle people towards him, getting that lockdown, and you saw that even when Karmine Corp loses, their carries actually perform. My eyes are still on xMatty's Ezreal because they haven't been able to get him off the pick, and he has performed time after time after time in 3 games back to back.
Yeah, I think coming into this, I wasn't the biggest fan seeing the Varus ban come in and that 3rd ban coming through for Karmine Corp. I think stick to the Thresh ban. I think Aphelios is such a powerful champion, especially with the flexibility you can see in the builds. Like, we saw the kind of the more, hey, I'm going to carry mid-game build and be a little bit less resistant to being burst. You got the not Bloodthirster, what's the word I'm looking for? The Mythic Shield Bow, thank you. Yeah, the Immortal Shield Bow came through. You end up going then for the Collector as well, which gives you a lot of power in those early stages. You come on a lot sooner, but because you've got that shield from the Immortal Shield Bow, it's a hell of a lot more difficult to try and pop you straight off the bat, quickly in towards the GA2, which means you've got the access to the stopwatch. It made it very difficult to deal with Bean. So when you put all your eggs into dealing with this Aphelios, well, then you've still got Viego. You still have other carries that are available on the side, and it just became too hot to handle.
Yeah, and that's something we noticed throughout the later stages of the game, especially the team fight setups trouble. There's one in particular that we want to look at on bot lane, if I'm not mistaken. And we've been talking about how the mid lane for Fnatic Rising was difficult, but this time around it feels like they had a perfect mid game, and that's what gives them the ability to come into this fight so easily. Let's check it out.
Yeah, I felt like after the 2 kills going on to Bean's side, and especially like Dagda mentioned, the shield bow coming in, you see that again, Karmine Corp are trying to pull plays, they're trying to cut Stayer on the side, Cinkrof overextends, gets caught, Fnatic Rising are really quick to pull the trigger, Pride comes in, the Gangplank ultimate creates so much space, the Thresh ultimate creates so much space, and once SAKEN has already used his shuffle, it's so much easier to stick on him. You see in this particular fight that Cabochard did not have a way to hit anyone. He pops his R and no one gets hit by it. Everyone just walks out
straight the card out of jail.
And one of the big issues for this composition is that you could try and play a range, right? You've got an Azir, you've got an Ezreal, you've got these kind of things, but you can see like you're always forced to engage as Karmine Corp because you're worried about things like the Gangplank ult slowing you down, making it a bit difficult to move. You're then going to have the Aphelios close the gap, and that's where you really start to struggle. So it felt like you had to throw these quick plays at Fnatic Rising as Karmine Corp, and they just couldn't quite coordinate them properly.
Yeah, it was super hard, especially with this comp. Now, before we dive onto the next game, I want to touch on the fact that Corp chose blue once again, and we have a 100% win rate from blue side tonight. Terrible.
So it's like a blue wall or something.
It's a blue, right? Nice one. And we'll see. Fnatic Rising found what they needed in Game 3, and let's see if they can do it again and take us to Game 5. We'll see what happens in our finals right after this.
Game 5, let's go.
Game 5, let's go!